Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 71, season 2 of the Mario and Chaos Show. I'm your co-host, Mario Mancini. I'm a former WWE wrestler and co-instructor at Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling, along with the man that's faster than a speeding bullet. That would be Paul Roma. Big Steve Tracy and the man behind the glass this week and every week, the 2020-something inductee into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Mr. Paul, second-generation grappler Perez. In one of these squares in my phone is a man that has done everything in this wrestling business from soup to nuts. My emphasis is on the nuts. He is none other than the guardian of chaos, Big Daddy. Big Daddy, what's going on?
Mario, episode 71, season 2 on the Mario and Chaos Show. I want to start off by saying, number one, Mancini. I don't know what it is that you're doing. I know you're being Roma-sized, but you look fantastic, Mancini.
Oh, Big Daddy, it's just called, back on the wagon, watching what you eat. That's all.
Well, we have a special guest here. It was a last minute. He was nice enough to hop on board with us. We are right now on the Mario and Chaos Show breathing rarefied air because here he is, the AirPod God, the most marketable man in pro wrestling, MLW superstar, and the current Caribbean heavyweight champion, and that would be Richard Holliday. Holliday, welcome to episode 71, season 2 of the Mario and Chaos Show.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you having me on. Apparently, I didn't get the memo to wear something very creative. I apologize for that.
Well, Holliday, we can't thank you enough for being on here. Obviously, you are Roma trained, Mancini brains, and the first thing I want to start off with, I want to give you a congratulations on an anniversary, a special anniversary for Richard Holliday, and that would be this week, 5 years in the pro wrestling industry, and to reach the heights from being the first student with Roma and Mancini at Paradise Alley to where you are 5 years later in the MLW, the face of MLW. Please address that and with one of your trainers, Mario Mancini, right here.
Yeah, five years in the biz, as we like to say, and it's been quite the journey. And yeah, absolutely. I started out as the first student with Mario and Paul, of course, and Paul Perez. And to start from what I started from, and just an old kind of little warehouse in East Haven, Connecticut, to wrestling internationally and on national television within 5 years is. In today's climate is definitely quite the accomplishment, and nothing that that I take for granted, for sure.
Mario, can you address what you first saw as Richard Holliday stepped into Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling 5 years ago as the first student, as compared to where he is now, and the quick transition that this young man has made in 5 years in the world of professional wrestling? Mario, I'm not sure if you heard the question.
No, I did not. In fact, everything was frozen for quite a while. You're asking me about Holliday's success so far in the 5 years that he's been in the wrestling business?
Yes, and the unprecedented amount of time and what it takes to get where Holliday was from the first student to where he is in the current climate, or even back in the golden era of the WWE in your days.
Well, I'm gonna give you an example of the golden era so everybody knows and fans know exactly what track Holliday's taken. I could remember being with Ray in the locker room and just talking, just bullshitting with Herc in the dressing room, asking him where he came from, how he started and everything, and his comment to me was he starved for 7 years. When Hogan started out with Beefcake and he was Hulk Hogan and he was Dizzy Hogan, they were living out of the back of a VW van. You know, they were sleeping in there. They were getting a loaf of bread and a pound of bologna, and they were hitting the road, and they were making $125 a shot. And, you know, everybody, no one ever walked into this business on top. So Holliday didn't start out with the loaf of bread and the bologna, and he's not starving. He started, and he got a little bit above that in the 5 years. So, you know, you can only imagine where he's going to be in another 2. When he hits that 7-year mark, that 7-year mark seems to be the mark for people in the business to really, if they're going somewhere, if they have the talent that Holliday has. Typically, that's when you know he'll see it in NXT or a WWE or an AEW. You know, and I hate to say it like this. Of course, a year ago we would never say it like this, but pending the pandemic.
Oh, that's a valid point. And speaking of that, both yourself and Holliday are on location tonight because of the power outages and the storms that have swept through here in the Northeast. So I want to thank you guys, even just for being here on air. And that's an excellent breakdown and the unprecedented timing of Holliday's career. Now, Holliday, I want to ask you this: as Pro Wrestling Illustrated must have a genie in the offices there at PWI, because 2 years ago, almost to the day, and I would like you to address this, you were in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the top magazine in the history of pro wrestling, as the one to watch. Here it is 2 years later. You're in a big feud with Savio Vega in the IWA and the Caribbean Heavyweight Championship. You were a tag team holder with MJF and the Dynasty with the tag team titles. And now you just signed a contract, a 2-year extension with MLW. What was it about Pro Wrestling Illustrated that forecasted the future of Richard Holliday?
Yeah, the PWI one to watch is typically, you know, it's not a 100% accurate crystal ball, but they seem to nail it more often than not. And, you know, it was kind of a launching pad for me. I remember right around that time was when I won the ECW Super 8 tournament, and then, you know, I was published as the one to watch, and then, you know, shortly thereafter I was signed to Major League Wrestling, and, you know, a year after that I win the tag team championship, and then, you know, we wrestle on pay-per-view, and then I go international, and it just starts to snowball, and you know, it all could be predicated from that moment where I was published as the one to watch. So, I mean, that was a great article for me, and to help out my career, and to, you know, get some recognition for, you know, Paradise Alley as the first student, you know, to be recognized, you know, in a major publication, and it's a good representation of myself as well. So I think, you know, they nailed it for sure, and I think you need to keep watching, because I'm still doing some, you know, not surprising things, but very interesting things in the world of pro wrestling.
Holliday, that's an excellent segue, and I want to flash back to Cicero Stadium in Chicago, when yourself and MJF, who's currently, you know, AEW MJF 2020, and we'll touch on that. But that night on pay-per-view, Holliday, Saturday Night Super Fight, is when you went up against Ross and Marshall Von Erich as the defending champions that night for MLW, and you came out on the short end of the stick and lost the titles. Could you tell me, flashing back to Cicero Stadium and that pay-per-view against the Von Erichs?
Yeah, I think maybe the shortage of the victory was probably because I was so preoccupied with knowing that this was the first ever pay-per-view that Major League Wrestling was going to be broadcasting. And who were the first people that consumers saw when they tuned into that pay-per-view? The first people that you saw was the Dynasty.
Yep.
And the first people to speak was Richard Holliday and MJF. So we were the footprint that laid the foundation for that pay-per-view. And that can never be taken away from us or myself. So that moment right there was huge, that the company entrusted us to kick off the pay-per-view and to kick off that match with us in the ring with some mic time. As you know, I mean, a pay-per-view is timed out, and that has to be, you know, to the T. So to allow us to kind of have free range on the microphone they kind of knew that they they had to give some extra time to the dynasty, which meant a lot.
Well, and since then, Holliday, the dynasty has gone in a couple of different directions. Obviously, the original members are yourself, the Meat Castle, Alex Hammerstone, and MJF, obviously. Since then, Gino Medina has come on board, and MJF has gone off into AEW. Now, I know Hammerstone is the national open weight champion right now. Where do you see the dynasty moving forward, whether it be a reunion someday with MJF or with yourself, the Meat Castle, and Gino Medina right now in MLW?
Well, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people that will tweet at myself or Hammerstone and say that we need to go to AEW and we need to join MJF. And I really don't respond to any of it because it's really not necessary, because I tell people if they want to see Richard Holliday and they want to see Alexander Hammerstone, then just watch Major League Wrestling, because there's so much that we have yet to do, and we have so much untapped potential, which is scary to even think about. In the future, could a reunion of us happen? I think we all know in this business, never say never. But right now, it's a complete focus on what I'm doing within the confines of Major League Wrestling and going forward in the short to intermediate future.
Now, Court Bauer has quoted and said that, and I know you have a little social media rivalry going on with the owner of MLW, Court Bauer. He has said that you are pro wrestling gone corporate. With that being said, I want to bring up the Contra unit and the current heavyweight champion, Jacob Fatu. You're embroiled with Savio Vega right now in the IWA, and it's rumored you're heading down to Puerto Rico when the pandemic breaks open to wrestle Vega at the Roberto Clemente Stadium. With that being said, concentrating on the Caribbean heavyweight title, do you have any thoughts on Jacob Fatu and perhaps pursuing the heavyweight title at MLW? And then Mario could speak to the Samoan dynasty.
Well, I think when it comes to Jacob Fatu, he is the heavyweight champion. And would it be nice to be the heavyweight champion? Of course. Do I foresee myself to be the heavyweight champion? I do. But the fact of the matter is this, is that the Caribbean Championship, when it was with Savio Vega, was just a mere profit. And it really wasn't much. Because and that's just 100% truth. I would tell Savio that. He was right in front of me.
Now, you do realize that Vega is a legend down in the IWA, Mr. Holliday. You are aware of Vega's background.
That's completely fine. Typically, the word legend has a connotation of past results. Nobody is a legend of the future. That's just not possible. So, yes, he is a legend, but I'm all about the future. I don't really care about what anybody did in the past, because it's in the past. I am making the Caribbean Championship as relevant as it has ever been. It is more talked about than the heavyweight championship itself, and it's still not even recognized as an official championship, which stems from my feud, quote unquote, with the owner of Major League Wrestling, Court Bauer. And that just goes to show what I'm doing with the championship and the recognition that I'm bringing to it and getting the consumers involved with that Caribbean Championship. I don't think Savio was doing that.
I'll say that to say this. Do you see in the future perhaps a title versus title against Jacob Fatu?
Without a doubt. Which would be a hefty wager on my end, because to risk my Caribbean Championship, I don't know if when that match happens, I don't know if the heavyweight championship is going to be at the same caliber. It's going to be tough.
This is where I want to bring back in my co-host, Mario Mancini. Now, Mario, you have a long, extended history with the Samoan dynasty, as does Paul Perez and as does myself. But you, better than anyone, seeing that Holliday may have a chance to go up with such a legendary family, and seeing that Holliday came into the business on his own, no connection, no social history, no legacy, no background like the Samoan dynasty, what can you tell Holliday as an insider's point of view, someone who was in the ring, as you can see behind me, on the shoulders of a wild Samoan Afa? Could you lend any inside notes, perhaps, on the Samoan dynasty and where they're coming from, Mario?
David Sammartino was not Bruno Sammartino. Yokozuna was not Alpha nor Sika, nor was Alpha or Sika High Chief Peter Maivia. So, you know, and it happens everywhere. I mean, 15 years ago or 12 years ago, Michael Munson was in the Yankee farm system. Michael Munson never became Thurman Munson. So we're talking about 2020. We're talking about individual talent and individual capabilities and in-ring savvy and experience. So regardless of where you come from or who you come from, the time is now and the time is today. You know what I mean? So if you put Holliday in the ring with Maivia or Alpha, Sika, Rocky Johnson, the outcome is going to be different, but that's not the case and that's not possible. So he's going against another generation of a Samoan. But listen, I'm sorry I don't recall his name. May he rest in peace. But there was at one point the youngest and the smallest of the Von Erichs that had absolutely no talent at all.
That was Chris Von Erich.
In fact, it was said that he didn't even belong in the ring, and he was a Von Erich. So what did that, being a Von Erich, what did that bring him? So I think when you talk of lineage, I don't really think it applies. I just think it's raw talent. It's the 2020 raw talent, and it's up to the individual.
That's an excellent breakdown, comparing a Holliday's background of not having the lineage as compared to the Samoan dynasty or the Von Erichs, which leads me on to the roster, Holliday at MLW. And we've spoken about this in private before, and we spoke about this pre-podcast. You're in a locker room, and I've heard you address this on several other interviews, because Holliday, as far as social media, there's nobody that's faced that's out there more than Richard Holliday. You're in the locker room, Holliday. We already talked about the Samoan dynasty. We already talked about the Von Erichs and their lineage. And we talk about Brian Pillman Jr. And we talk about Davey Boy Smith. We talk about all the history that goes on in the MLW locker room. Can you speak to how you've been treated and just the genuine atmosphere in MLW as far as a brotherhood and the talent are to each other, and the way Court Bauer is running MLW?
Well, of course, done an excellent job of plucking talent from a lot of the major families in professional wrestling. And, to Mario's point, it doesn't really matter who they had pancakes with as a kid, with breakfast. that doesn't mean anything. But, they are quite talented, the Von Erich boys and, the other wrestlers that you had mentioned. So, but I think when they look at me, they look at somebody who is 100% just raw talent, just no family lineage. Just getting it done by himself. And I think that's more impressive. And Court knows when he has a diamond in the rough per se. That's more impressive. And that's why he's building the company around myself.
Now, I want to ask you this question, Holliday, because I did see the video and I've seen most of your appearances. You are an international star as we speak. And right before the pandemic hit in March, you were in front of thousands down in Mexico City and down in Tijuana, if I'm not mistaken. Can you speak to your experience about being in the legendary Lucha Libre area of Mexico and the dangerous area of Tijuana, how you were treated by the fans and how you were received? Because I'll tell you one thing, heat follows Holliday wherever he goes.
Well, I will say this, the consumers of Tijuana are some of the rudest and most obnoxious consumers that I've ever had the displeasure of performing in front of. One of them in particular, after I was victorious in their native land against one of their heroes and chessmen, decided to throw a beer at me. And while I am disgusted by beer just in its natural state when it is thrown on me, I don't appreciate it even more so. But I will say this: they're very passionate about professional wrestling down there in Tijuana, and Mexico as a whole. And to perform in front of 5,000 consumers is always exhilarating. But just something about Tijuana that I just personally don't like. I much prefer San Diego or Los Angeles if I'm going to go out west.
Well, speaking of merchandising and marketing and consumers all over the country and especially down in Mexico where you're a big hit now, Holliday, whether they threw a beer on you, unless it's Mesa Maspina, I mean, it doesn't matter. What I want to talk about, we know you're the ear pod god. We're well aware of that. How is the Dynastic coffee going, Mr. Holliday? I want to speak about Dynastic coffee.
There's a brand that I'm working on. What was that?
I think you're freezing up. I'm just wondering, how is the market? How are the second quarter shareholders meetings going with Dynastic Coffee? I mean, I know you're big on branding and consumers. I believe we're having a power outage here on the Mario and Chaos show. What I would like to talk, apparently the Dynastic Coffee is going well. What I would like to talk about, Holliday, can you hear me as we speak?
Yes, 1 second. I apologize.
Well, that's okay. I get to look at Mancini because he looks tremendous. Mancini, are you in the office right now? Are you still working?
No, I had to come here to do the podcast, Big Daddy, because I have no power.
Well, while we're having a brief intermission here, a brief break, waiting for MLW superstar Richard Holliday, fans, go out to sweetheal.com. It's the perfect opportunity to go see my buddy, Mr. Hempel-Stilskin, for all your CBD needs. It's the wave of America. It's the wave of the future and wellness and sports in general. Mr. Hempel-Stilskin, go visit sweetheal.com. It's Connecticut owned and Connecticut grown. Support your local businesses. Now, Holliday, are you back with us?
I am.
I would like to talk about, let's get off MLW for 1 second, although I want to bring up an incredible woman that I know you're at odds with in MLW. We'll get to that in 1 second. Can you give me your thoughts on Beyond Wrestling and the heavyweight title and what took place when you won the heavyweight title for Beyond Wrestling?
Yeah, I threw it in the trash. It was one of those things where, Beyond was experimenting with something different. And we know that Beyond doesn't do championships, and, they did the one-night tournament and I won it, of course. And I just said, you know what? I am a man of tradition, and I feel like this championship is just not going to be accepted by the consumers. As much as I could have, made it, I just didn't have the desire to do so. I was more so focused on the Caribbean Championship, my Dynastic Coffee. There's so many other things that I could have put my focus and or attention to. So I won the championship just to prove that I could be the champion, and I just threw it in the garbage.
Well, that kind of reminds me what Shane Douglas did when he worked for the NAWA, the North American Wrestling Alliance, while he was the ECW champion. He won the NAWA championship in a battle royal that Mancini competed in at the Westchester County Civic Center back at Slam Jam, went into the ring, took the ECW heavyweight title like you did the Beyond title, threw it in the trash, told Paul Heyman to kiss his ass, and then walked out with the NAWA World Championship. History there for Tony Capone and the Godfather. But I want to ask you this question, Holliday. I just recently viewed MLW Pulp Fusion, for the July 30th episode, and you were inside in the library, Holliday. Could you explain the vignette and what happened in Pulp Fusion, and then maybe the episode of where it was produced by the Dynasty itself? MLW Fusion.
So the Pulp Fusion episode that you're referring to, I was in my lawyer slash my father's bookcase, just doing a quick overview of legal terminology in terms of me being the rightful Caribbean champion. And of course, you never argue with literature, especially when it's printed in a book. So that was just to prove my case even further. Then I'm sorry, you're referring to the dynastic episode of Fusion that we
Yes, it
produced
was.
several
If
months
I'm not
back.
mistaken, Holiday, it was about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. The dynastic episode of Fusion was unbelievable. Can you break down the concept? Who came up with the idea? Who was the actual producer for the dynasty episode of Fusion?
Yeah, that was a few months ago, but because it was so good, it does seem like it was a short time ago, right? It's very, very prevalent in your mind, I suppose.
Correct.
But that was produced by us three. I mean, that was me, Max, and Hammerstone, and we came up with basically the start to finish per minute of what was allowed on that taping.
Now, seeing that you're still the Caribbean champion, we don't know where that's going to go. Is there any future thoughts of yourself and Hammerstone, or maybe even Gino, because I'm not sure of his status with the dynasty still? Do you have any thoughts of trying to recapture the tag team gold from the Von Erichs in MLW?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Hammerstone would be the correct choice to go after those tag team championships. That way we can both be dual champions. I think that brings a little bit more honor to the dynasty. And just to be honest, I trust him more.
Now, I sense a little, I've seen it on the programming, I sense a little tension between the Meat Castle and yourself and Gino Medina. Am I off on this in my investigative reporting? Breaking news?
No, not breaking news, but Gino was certainly an interesting recruit, and we'll see how he pans out. I'll leave it at that.
Your thoughts, Mancini? Look at the size of those calves. They look like bowling pins, Mancini. What did you squat at one time when you were powerlifting?
600 pounds.
600 pounds?
Yeah,
You were a strong bastard.
that was in Seabrook, New Hampshire in 1989 when I was 23. All juiced up.
Wow. Bowling pins. You had me distracted. I want to throw this name out at Holiday, and I know Paul Perez knows this name and knows the photos because on our Mario and Chaos Twitter site, we retweet a lot of her photos. And I know that Holiday, at one time, you had some muy caliente with this young lady, and that would be Selena de la Vega. Can you comment on that young lady and the issues that you guys had in the past?
Selena de la Renta.
De la Renta. Well, you know what Bully Ray says to me on Busted Open Radio? Give me 5 spots and I fuck up 4 of them, Holiday.
Well, Selena is certainly a spicy individual. She's a very alpha female, as you could say, and she brings a lot to Major League Wrestling. She certainly does. Not to outshine me, of course, but she does bring quite a bit of flavor to the program.
While I have you here, Holiday, and we have the owner of Paradise Alley, Mario Mancini, class of 2014, New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer Paul Perez, I want to ask you about the current roll call of champions at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. I'm just going to throw out a few names, and if you could respond to your former home, seeing that and it will always be your home, seeing that you were the Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. Our current champion is a 400-pounder, Vlad, who took it from Matias DiNapoli. Our Alley Fights champion is Nutrius X. Our tag team champions are the House of Pain. Our Intercontinental champion is Bull Dread. Our U.S. champion is Bloodsaw. And, of course, our 3-time tag team champions, I just said, are the House of Pain. Can you break down the talent along with the young lions of your Haven, Flash Waller, Kylon King, Zachariah Gibbs? Throw in probably the most decorated person in Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling history, and that would be Showtime Marcel Williams. Can you address the locker room and the talent of Paradise Alley?
Yeah, I mean, I think Paradise Alley has quite a few champions, as you just mentioned. But I will say that there's a ton of talent in there, and I think a few of the younger guys, in specific, Kylon King and Flash Waller, I think are going to be the shining stars of that promotion. I really think that. I think they are two of the best young prospects I've seen in quite some time. Haven, of course, they're a hardworking group. And then, it's a talented roster. And then every time that the consumers come out to PAPW, they put on a great show. I would like to see a little bit more risk-taking out of the locker room. I'd like to see some people taking some more chances on themselves and branch out a little bit more and do some different things and break away from the norm and, read the blueprint but adjust the blueprint. And I think that's how you become successful in anything in life, but in particular pro wrestling. I think if you just always listen to what you're told and don't think for yourself and don't try something new, I think you're going to fall behind. So I always challenge that locker room to think different and to be different. And I think Kylon and Flash in particular are doing that, which is why I gravitate towards them a bit more.
Now, Mario, as the owner and one of the trainers and Flash and Kylon and the Haven and the gentleman that we're talking about and Zach Gibbs, they have started with you, Mario. Do you see what Richard Holliday, who is obviously a proven commodity, it's well documented already in 5 years, do you see what Holliday sees in the young lions at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling?
Absolutely. But I do have one question for Holliday.
Well, it's your show, Mancini.
I have one question for Holliday that's kind of important to me. Does your coffee come in French vanilla?
Of course it comes in French vanilla, Mario. I mean, that's a tried and true flavor.
Where can I get this coffee?
It's dynastic.
MLWshop.com.
Well, I'm sorry. Obviously, Mr. Holliday, we didn't hear you. One more time, where can we get your coffee? Where myself, the consumers, get this delicious product?
Well, the product itself is still in production. We're still figuring out final flavors and ingredients. However, you could buy the Dynastic coffee mug, which does improve any normal cup of coffee by 12%, actually, statistically proven, if you do drink it out of the Dynastic coffee mug. So your normal everyday day-to-day coffee could be 12% better if you do buy this mug. So I will say that.
And where can I get this mug that I need?
MLWshop.com.
I will immediately.
Let me say that again, Mancini, because I interrupted the first time. MLWshop.com. Now, Court, I hope you're listening because I love you like a brother from another mother. You're like no other, and you're running a great product. Holliday, I want you to break this down. The difference between Pulp Fusion and MLW Underground. I want you to break down MLW Underground to the fans.
Well, I mean, MLW Underground gives you a taste of the past and kind of the grassroots of Major League Wrestling, where we came from. And, it's very surprising to see a lot of the stars that have rolled through MLW. I mean, the likes of Dusty Rhodes and CM Punk and Terry Funk and the legends of our business have wrestled within the confines of the squared circle of Major League Wrestling. And that's intriguing to the consumers. And then Pulp Fusion, of course, we are in the midst of a pandemic. It does allow the current regime of superstars of Major League Wrestling and our athletes to stay relevant and to continue storylines and progressions, in the confines of an 8-minute clip. So it really is a testament to what MLW is able to do, is provide some of the old with the new and give it a little mosh posh.
I did see that MLW tweeted something out today of an empty MLW arena, kind of like what AEW and WWE is doing at the Performance Center. Could you let it out here on the Mario and Chaos show if what I saw on social media could be coming to fruition, that MLW may be starting to run again a la WWE, AEW?
Big Daddy, I believe speculation spurs interest, and I think it is best to just leave it as speculation.
Holliday, that's the best answer you could have ever gave me right now. Now, I want to turn to my producer, who's done nothing but smile the whole time with that beautiful retro Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling T-shirt on. Paul, we don't get to have Holliday on here too often. He's become a world traveler and a big star due to Paradise Alley. Is there anything that you would personally like to ask Richard Holliday while we have him here on the Mario and Chaos show?
No, I don't want to ask him anything, but I do want to wish him the best of luck. I mean, with the roster that they have at MLW, I think he's going to have great matches this next year for sure.
A man of few words.
Paul, I couldn't appreciate that and anymore. I mean, people don't know this, but my first ever reverse sunset flip off the second rope was on you, Mr. Paul Perez, and that allowed me the confidence to continue to do things and try new things in the business and in the ring. And you were a very integral part of me developing myself within the ring, and I will always be grateful for you.
Thank you.
I want to ask this question, Holliday. Is it true? And again, you know what my facts, we already talked about Bully Ray. Is it true that your first professional match was against WWE legend Brian Costello? Is that true?
Some say Brian Costello, some say Guy Fieri. It's up for debate. Yes.
Mancini, if that is the case, and Holliday's first professional match was against one of your great friends from the WWE days in the golden era, Brian Costello, down at the IWA, can you speak to that road trip and being there for that memorable day for Richard Holliday and appearing with your good friend Brian Costello, who is a wrestling legend?
Well, listen, after being on the road for the years I was in professional wrestling and seeing basically everything and doing a lot myself, it's always fun to take at that time a rookie on the road for a road trip that long. It's a lot of fun, and you know, it's a good experience. This is the way I want to end it up is this about Richard Holliday. I spoke to a wrestling promoter that has had a long layoff, and that would be Tony Capone. And when I mentioned Richard Holliday to him, I said, listen, he's the real deal. So when you tell somebody that's been in the wrestling business for 30 years about a wrestler and he's the real deal, it means that his skills in the ring are not above average, they're excellent. It also means to me, you, Perez, and Capone, when I say he's the real deal, he's a pro wrestler. He looks like he can go into the ring in 2020. He looks like he could go in the ring in '84 against Piper, against Valentine, against Ordendorff, against all the guys we faced. 6'3", 235, 40 pounds. He's a big human being, and he takes that size. He's very careful with training, very careful with his diet, and he displays those skills in the ring at a high level. So that's how a veteran of back in the day, if to say, hey, this guy's the real deal, that's what that means. So there's no other place to go but up for Holliday. He's not going to go down. He's just going to keep going up because he's got the goods. You understand? You have a good-looking guy. You might be 215. He might be 5'10", and he throws 86 miles an hour. Then Holliday takes the mound, and he throws 99. That's the difference. And the guy that's going to throw 99, he's going to make it to the major league, which is ironic because that's the name of his company, isn't it? Major League Wrestling. So you know, he's got a lot in front of him. He's got a long career in front of him. He's got a lot of experience in front of him. He's got a lot of road in front of him. And, you know, I think he's pissed me off a lot during these 5 years. But he, you know, he's the one that ended up being right. And I was the one that ended up being wrong, you know, because I said, "You're a wrestler," and he says, "I'm in the business." I said, "No. You're a wrestler." He goes, "No, I'm in the business of wrestling." And I'd walk away from him. I'd be very angry. But you know what? He built that business around consumers, and he goes in as business. He's got the AirPods. His whole career, his whole persona is business. So I'm the one that was wrong, and he was the one that was right. So you know what? He's doing the right thing. Hence the most marketable man in pro wrestling.
Holliday,
inside and outside of the ring.
Right, Paul Perez, inside and outside of the ring. You know, when he walks into the locker room and walks into the arena, you could see the air of confidence, the machismo, if you will. I've been around this business for 35 years as a manager and as a scout, and Holliday is a 5-tool player. There's no two ways about that. Holliday, I know you're short on time. I know you're on location. I want to ask you this question before we let you get out of here. And I know you're an MLW. It's well stated. If you want to see Richard Holliday, you see him in MLW. I understand that, all due respect. I want your advice or your opinion or your outlook post-pandemic, and if we get through this pandemic, pre-pandemic, post, whatever you want to call it, the landscape of professional wrestling with WWE, AEW, MLW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, the NWA. The list goes on and on with competition, the independents, the major leagues. Your opinion on the future of pro wrestling, like MJF said, and I hate to keep bringing it back, at your age, at his age, perfect example, you guys will be in this business for the next 15, 20, 25 years. Your thoughts on the future in the landscape of professional wrestling?
I mean, it's ever changing. It's ever growing. It's kind of like the conversation that I had with Mario about when I pissed him off and I told him that I was, I believe that the exact term, Mario, was I was in the entertainment business.
Right.
And I think maybe what triggered pissing you off that much was how I don't even think I had a match at that point. But that was just always my mindset, right? It was like that's what has drawn me to pro wrestling. It was, you know, the glitz and the glam and the pageantry of professional wrestling that personally drew me in, that wanted me to get into the ring. Whereas vice versa, when you had got into it, it was more so the actual in-ring competition that drew you in. So neither one of us were wrong, and you know, quite frankly, that also means that neither one of us are right. But you know, the business is ever changing. It's all about adaptation, and I think it's all about what Mario mentioned before about how I, you know, marketing and AirPods and rarefied air and consumers, and how I've built my kind of persona around that. And that's taking a chance. That's taking a leap. And trying to be different in a business where there's so many people trying and gunning to be the guy or somebody who is recognized within pro wrestling. You'll never get recognized if you're just a good wrestler. It's just not the way it's going to work. You have to offer more. You have to view yourself and look yourself in the mirror and say, would I put myself on TV in an 8-month program with this other wrestler? Could this work? And if you don't offer anything, then it won't work. So it's, you know, wrestling is all about engaging the consumers, and especially in 2020, you need to engage your consumers, because
think we lost
not
in the
as
first
quick
section.
as they used to be. We're not as long lasting as they used. They're not long lasting attention spans. So if you don't hold their attention, they're not going to care. So how do you get that attention? And I think our generation has learned that, and it's difficult, but that's kind of the landscape. But there's so much wrestling, so much wrestling. There's an oversaturation in my
It really
opinion.
is.
So much. How do you stand out? How do you stand out? You have to be different.
Well, Holliday, you're certainly accomplishing that. And the last thing from me, because I'm not sure if Paul Perez or Mario ever had the chance to be in the ring with this legend from the IWA, and I'm talking about Savio Vega. And I wanted here on our podcast, on our show, Holliday, do you have, moving forward, do you have any choice words or challenge, anything that you could bring to the table in regards to the Caribbean heavyweight title and Savio Vega? I would love to hear it, and so would the fans for our audience.
Yeah, I would just tell Savio to make sure he's working on his cardio while he's talking all that smack to me, and make sure that he, lathers up that bald head of his so he doesn't get some sunburn while he's down there looking at Roberto Clemente Stadium saying that he wants to sell it out with me. We all know that if a match were advertised in Roberto Clemente Stadium, myself, the Caribbean champion for Savio Vega, the consumers would come in droves to see me, not to see him. So he needs to understand that. I hope Savio understands that. Legends are in our business. Thank you so much, Savio. You paved the way, but now it's time for me to kind of steer the ship.
Well, strong words from a strong man, Holliday. I can't wait to see that match. We wish you well here at the Mario and Chaos Show, and we hope you're coming home sometime soon, brother. Mario Perez, anything for the champ before we let him get out of here?
Yeah, Holliday, have a good night's sleep, brother.
Thanks, Mario. I appreciate it. And hey, listen, whenever PAPW decides to pop up again, I'd love to maybe be a part of it.
Well, Holliday, throw out all your social media platforms.
At Most Marketable, Instagram and Twitter.
Well,
Go ahead, Mancini.
you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Holliday is Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. So wherever Paradise Alley will be, if Holliday is not with MLW or in Puerto Rico, he will always be at Paradise Alley. His role was so different now in Paradise Alley. Not only, obviously working in the ring, but he has the experience and he's helping the younger guys. So that's invaluable. So I appreciate that, and he gives them good advice, and he's just as important in that dressing room as he is in the ring with Paradise Alley. So
I appreciate that.
All right, Holliday, we're gonna let you get out of here. We're gonna run down some Paradise Alley news, and God bless. Thank you for coming on, Holliday, and well wishes, and we'll see you down at the ring, brother.
Thank you for having me, guys. Everyone
Thank
stay
you for
safe.
coming. Yep, you too.
Excellent show here with Holliday. I couldn't thank him enough to come on last minute, especially during this power outage. Now, Mario, I want to just quickly update before we get out of here on episode 71, season 2. Do you have any late breaking news? I saw some stuff in the chat room in regards to the special 3-show in 1 day event coming up on August 29th, a special Saturday alley fight down at the Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling Training Facility.
Well, again, what was brought up to me by the multifaceted Joanne, and I say that because she could be in the front row chanting somebody's name just like a regular fan, but then she could be breaking down a WWE match that is either good or bad, and she knows what she's talking about. Or she could be talking about the business as a whole and different independent companies. But in this case, she also reminded me that I need to get phase 2 clearance in order to run this show. And if I don't have that clearance, it's going to be difficult to run this show. And I assured all the staff in Paradise Alley, which is my job, that I will make sure I get that clearance. She also attended the class on Monday night to watch the students that have been there for a couple of years, along with the rookies, and looked around and said, place has to be spotless. You know what I mean? So, you know, she's definitely looking out for Paradise Alley and its best interest. So I need to, she's going to send me a link where I could apply for phase 2 clearance. It's going to be half the capacity. I don't want to include the staff in that capacity. I'm hoping I don't have to do that.
Well, Mario, if I'm not mistaken, that's why the 3 different bell times and 3 different shows, technically, so to speak, because of the social distancing and the guidelines.
Right, and the seats have to be distant 6 feet apart, and you know they have to be staggered and everything. So again, I hope it's not to include staff because we have a lot of staff. You know, I can't have 20 staff members and 15 fans. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping it doesn't include the staff, but you know, half the capacity. And we're gonna have to X out things and it visibly, you know, it maybe put up all the chairs and just put caution tape on on 2 chairs, then have a fan, 2 chairs and have a fan. We're gonna work it out. So that's the way it's gonna run. Again, I hope I don't have to count the staff, but you know, I have to get phase 2 clearance in order for this show to happen.
Well, that's a valid point. Obviously, at Paradise Alley, myself, Big Steve, Roma, Perez, and yourself have spoken about this. The fans in attendance and obviously the talent as well and their families are the most important thing at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. And with that being said, fans, tomorrow night and every Wednesday night between 7 and 8 o'clock, it's Paul Roma, the head trainer at Paradise Alley, with Avi Klein on Maintaining the Truth. Now, fans, it's on Facebook Live. They're getting set up for Twitch also. If you don't go out and listen to Avi Klein and his platform where he's got Del Wilkes, he's got Paul Roma, he's got the Magnificent Morocco, he's got Bill DeMott, he has Glacier, he has Duke the Dumpster Drosy. What an unbelievable podcast. And it's even rumored that Mancini may be having a show on the podcast platform with Avi Klein. But fans, Maintaining the Truth Wednesday nights on Facebook Live. Obviously, yours truly on international and national radio every Thursday night on the infamous worldwide Dino Costa show for Chaos Corner. Now, what I'd like to do, Mancini, is just run quickly through our roll call of champions. Nothing has really changed, but we like to update the fans. Your heavyweight champion is still Vlad. Your United States champion is still Bloodsaw. The Intercontinental champion is Bull Dread. The Alley Fights champion is Nutrius X. The King of Paradise is Nick Delta. The reigning Hercules Hernandez Memorial Tournament winner is Showtime Marcel Williams. And, of course, your 3-time tag team champions at Paradise Alley, and that would be the House of Pain. Is there anything that, Mario, would like to send out to the fans, keep them updated, where they can catch us on social media at Twitter, obviously Mario and Chaos podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? What else can we tell the fans?
ParadiseAlleyProWrestling.com.
That's the best place you can go for all the information. And you can catch our producer, Paul Perez, at PAPW Griever on Twitter. Mancini is, I believe it's at WWF Mancini. You can catch the legend. And, of course.
I don't know, Big Daddy. I haven't been on Twitter in so long. I think that's it.
Where can people catch you on social media, Mancini?
They can catch me on Facebook.
And what is your information on Facebook?
Well, they could just put Mario Mancini and they'll catch me on Facebook. They can catch me on Instagram. Mario Mancini on Instagram.
Well, I'm getting a lot of viewer mail that's clogging up my social media in regards to the Mario Mancini career. And fans, I'm at Big Daddy GOC, and the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. Episode 71, Season 2, Mancini, Perez, we made it through the hurricane, the power outage. We're going to make it through the pandemic. Mario, take us out of here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget to tune in for episode number 72 next week on the Mario and Chaos Show. Until then, as Casey Kasem once said, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.